Hello. I want to talk about something that I really have not seen talked about in the world in modern era. And it is the ideology of suffering and its beauty. How we were actually in some regards made for it. And I might start crying because I'm just realizing why so many people like Fyodor Dostoevsky and Friedrich Nietzsche, who are on two polar opposites, they could agree on this one thing of suffering. You know, Friedrich Nietzsche wasn't really into morality and stuff of that sort, but he couldn't dispute the ideology of suffering and how it brings you more knowledge. And it's a quote from Fyodor Dostoevsky that Nietzsche's loved is, I'm going to butcher the exact quote, but it says, "I really believe the great men on this earth must also have great sorrow," or like, the people who have the greatest hearts have experienced the greatest sorrow. And something I've realized in just observing the world and not falling into the systems that have been established that are folly is suffering is the pinnacle of awareness. The suffering has been the most monumental thing for me to be aware of consciousness, of being, of self. And in my opinion, I believe we ought to desire, this sounds crazy, we ought to desire suffering because it actually brings us to know the inner man, the consciousness, the peace within. In my opinion, it's God. But that's for another topic. Today I want to focus on the suffering. Whether you believe in a God or not, it is undisputed, it's not disputable, that we all embark on a journey of suffering in some capacity of our lives. And it is inevitable. And I believe that the dogma that is being taught right now is that suffering doesn't have to exist. And I believe that's being taught so that we don't see the reality. We don't see that we are all going to die. That this world is decaying as we know it. And so are we. That everything about us is fading. And I'm really wrestling with a lot with that because it's very easy when you're aware of this to fall into a nihilistic ideology where everything is meaningless, and when things don't inherently go your way, this is what Friedrich Nietzsche talks about. You either desire power or you're a slave to power. It's like most of the time when we want love, we are in some facets desiring power. It's a super fascinating point, and it's really making me wrestle of why I desire certain things in my life, why I desire, whether it's a relationship, whether it's money, whether it's whatever, it's power over my circumstance. And so I believe that we have fallen into a slave power. We have become slaves, like Friedrich Nietzsche talks about so much, to the very thing that we have so for a millennia gone against, which is the system, which is falling for what they want us to fall for, which is the power of this world. And this is where the whole ideology of ignorance is bliss comes along, is I think that most of the world has standardized their mind to ignorance is bliss rather than knowing true knowledge, rather than knowing true depth, rather than knowing true meaning. People don't even know what the word love means. That's crazy. The word love in the original terms was to sacrifice your life, to lay down your life for another. In the Greek, they had over 7 versions, words for love, because it was so complex to them, because it was so abstract to them. And all of those words, love, meant to serve. This is where I disagree heavily with Friedrich Nietzsche, because he's all about power. But my point being is, when you serve, when you go under something, you are going to die. You're going to suffer, because you're laying down yourself for others. And that's the dilemma that I'm facing now, is I'm at a point in my life where I feel like I'm laying down a lot for other people, and there's very little in return. But then it's also the dilemma of we are selfish beings, and we think we know what we want. And it's like, what do we actually know? I don't know anymore. Because of the suffering I'm going through, I'm like, why is it that I'm so drawn to this person or this thing when there's so many other quote unquote good options in front of me? This is where consciousness comes in, where I think that we are so different than any other being. Is there's literally like a conscious facet about us that makes us desire, and through the suffering and through the things that we see in suffering, we actually desire more of not the suffering, but of comfort in that suffering. And so suffering allows us to see our innate desire to be comforted. It allows us to see our innate desire to be wanted. I have observed a lot of people's lives, and I am almost certain that somewhere in our souls, for some odd reason, I believe it's because we were made for God. God was made to fulfill our hearts, but for some odd reason, we desire to be comforted by whatever it is. Now, this is the dilemma. If God is not real, sure, serve yourself. Do everything for yourself. Never do anything for anyone, because why does it matter? That's what Nietzsche talks about. That's what he got from suffering. But you can impose the exact opposite ideology, even without, if we take God out of the picture. If you see suffering is inevitable in this world, you can, and I believe it actually is written in man's heart, to desire to change that and to produce something other than suffering, to produce history, to produce changing of death. That is why we take care of plants. That is why we take care of this earth. We're trying to stop the cycle of death. And I think that when we tap into, one, the reality of death, it'll make us desire to love people more, but also feel the weight of those things. And that's really where I'm having contention in my own heart, is for the first time I'm actually experiencing these things, and I'm not just pushing them away like I have in the past. I grew up and I've faced a lot of suffering. My parents were alcoholics who were awful. They've changed a lot, which is awesome, but from that alone sucks. But then the first time I lost a friend was 12 years old, and I've lost over 25 people to suicide in my life. And I diluted all of it for so long, blinding myself to the weight of what I felt. And in this thing that I'm going through right now, it's actually crazy. I feel like I'm experiencing more suffering in what I'm going through now than through all of those things. And it's because experience is nothing without embracement. If you're not willing to embrace, if you're not willing to acknowledge that your arm is burned when you put it on a stove, then you'll never get healing from it, because you won't tend to it rightly. And so you won't actually be the fullness and trueness of the being of who you are, the spiritual being of who you are, unless you choose to tend to the wound. And that's what I'm realizing now, is I don't really have all of the I don't know much, to be honest. This video honestly is to really express my desire for people to explore their suffering more and not give into the lousiness of living in a blissful life that actually sucks because you know nothing and you're not actually experiencing this world. You are living in a virtual reality, because true reality is greater than the flesh and bones that we are, because we are spiritual beings. We are conscious beings. And that consciousness, that is, being conscious is the only way to fully tap into the pain that your heart experiences and to learn from it. And like I said, I don't know fully what I'm learning from this, other than there's a lot more to the world, and there's so much actually, but it's at the same time it's so consuming that it feels like I'm learning nothing, because it's so the pinnacle, the forefront of my life. But I'm so thankful it is, because every day I wake up and I know my heart is breathing, that my heart is beating. Because blood flowing to your heart is what proves that your heart is beating. And so when you feel the blood flow because of the agony, when you feel the wound, you know you're alive. If you don't have a wound, if you don't feel the pain of the wound, how do you know you're alive? I don't know. I guess you still can. I would argue that it is a lot harder to know that you're alive when you have not felt the pain of your wound. Because the wound, the pain, shows the depth of the soul, and it shows the greatness thereof that is to come with healing, because that is the crazy thing about our physical bodies that mirror our spiritual bodies. I hope this is all being heard because there's wind. But our spiritual bodies, spiritual beings, also have wounds. It is, in my opinion, it is idiotic to believe that we are not spiritual beings, that we are just a rubbish dust that got collected together. There is no great evidence to prove to that being true. Whether you believe in God or not, there is no evidence pointing to the fact that we are not conscious, that we are just DNA, that chemical reactions that continue to react and continue to react. If that is the case, there's no point in morality. There's no point in love. There's no point in any of this stuff. We should just fend on the streets, you know? Like, there's literally no point in any of it if there is not consciousness. And I believe because of the fact that where I went prior, the fact that it is innately programmed, wired into our being to desire comfort. I've observed a lot of people from a lot of different scales. I was diagnosed as a sociopath for years, and I believe that God has healed me from that. But even then, I still desired comfort. I just sought it in different ways because I blinded myself to the pain that I was going through, rather than embracing it and finding who the inner man of Tanner is. For whoever is watching this, embrace the sorrow. Embrace every emotion. There's a difference from embracing and allowing it to now become your comfort. There's two sides to the coin. What often happens, what I've seen in most people, is they don't embrace it at all. They shove it away. They go to drugs, alcohol, women, whatever it is. They go to something, some vice, some prescription, some placebo to make them feel better about themselves. Or people go to the opposite side, and this is where suicide happens, is they're so consumed with what's happening in their heart that they don't actually embrace it. They don't let it flow. They let it flood their heart. They let it build up in their heart to the point where they just explode, because they're trying to keep something in that was never meant to be kept in. It was made to flow. And so I think what I'm trying to say is I desire for humanity and for myself to actually embrace what's happening in our hearts. There is so much greater knowledge and comfort and my eyes have been opened in a way that it hasn't been in the past. I'm gonna cry. Like, I'm experiencing some of the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life. And I've never felt so me. I've never felt so one with inner self in a way. Like, I believe for me, I'm more one with God than ever before because I'm able to lay it at his feet and come to him and also acknowledge. This is the crazy thing about the God of Christianity. He's known in Isaiah 53 as the son of suffering. No other God is known as that. I've looked into a lot of religions, a lot of ideologies, and Jesus is proclaimed as the son of suffering. He actually knows what it's like to suffer in ways I don't even know. I've experienced so much pain in my life, and I don't know a fraction of what Jesus went through. And my point being is back to the comfort. Our souls were designed for comfort, for connection. And I think that without pain, we don't know connection. Because of the pain I'm going through, I've realized more so about what connection actually is than ever before. And it's something that you can't, there's no words to embody what it is. It just is. And it's so funny because there's so many things in our lives that we have proclaimed we have the answers to. So much of science, people have been like, oh, I have the answer to this. 30 years later, the answer was wrong. Half of what we've been taught has been wrong. It's all lies. And it's like, shoot, bro, maybe if we just were beings, human beings, we just were being instead of trying to do, we would understand ourselves a little more. And that's what I've really realized in this time of my life. I'm like, I am a human being. All I have to do is be. And the only way to be is to actually sit in what you're going through. If you go to vices, if you fall into fear, if you fall into whatever it is, if you buy the placebo pill, you are not being, you are now doing. You are falling into the fallacy of doing. And it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because that's not what we were made. There's a reason we're called human beings, because we're made to be with inner self, inner man, God who dwells in the heart. We were literally made to just dwell. And that's what they did before they started building everything. Before all these stupid buildings were built, they just literally lived day by day, night by night, embraced what they had to embrace, fought the wars they had to fight, and heal from the wounds they had to heal from. Suffering is inevitable. It is a portion of this life, and it is foolish of humankind right now to blind ourselves, to rid ourselves from suffering, to take placebos of riches, of money, of drugs, of sex, and not see that all of those things are things that we're doing rather than things of us just being. And so it's like you get to just be, and that's how you find true self. That's how you find knowledge and truth in the midst of everything. So I don't know what life looks like for you, but for me, I'm suffering in more ways than I thought I could ever suffer, especially with this wind. I really hope you can hear me. It's blowing. It's not making me very happy. But I've never understood humanity more. I've never understood myself more. And I believe that true knowledge is truth. Truth can't waver. There can't be a multitude of prescriptions of truth unless they lead to truth. Because the truth is the fix. The truth is, oh my gosh, this wind. The truth is the thing that literally is. The truth is being. That's literally what it is. That is what truth is. It's being. And it's because since therefore everything else ceases, since therefore everything else wavers, they can't be the truth. It's feasibly impossible. That's a logical fallacy. It's a double entendre. It goes over itself. It doesn't make sense. It literally makes no sense. So the only truth that can actually be is what God asks. And I believe it's Psalm 26 or Psalm 27, to dwell in us. Psalm 24, David makes a dwelling place for the Lord of hosts, for the King of kings. And they dwell together. That is what we were made for, bro. Dwelling means honesty. It means embracement. It means acknowledgement. That is true being, is awareness. That's what suffering does, is it makes you aware. It makes you aware. And you can choose a few things from this. You can choose to be aware now because you're aware. Or you can choose to believe the lie that you've been taught your whole life. The choice is now yours. And it's in your hands. Suffering is ugly. It's bloody. It's disgusting, honestly. I don't love it, but I think I don't love it because I've been taught not to love it. Because the schemes of this world are made to make you a slave. I'm done being a slave. Even if I get whipped. Even if I get beaten. So I'm finna embrace everything that I'm going through. I think you should too. If you don't know how to, sit, embrace it, take a pen and just start writing and let yourself flow. Let the river inside of you literally just flow. I know that sounds so weird, but it's the best way I could describe it, is you can just flow. A river doesn't choose, it just goes. It finds its way down the path and it just goes. So why don't we? So I don't know what you're going through, but I do know something. That the really great men who have tasted a glimpse of truth, the really great men must, I think, have great sorrow on this earth. So I don't know what your life looks like, but embrace it. And humble yourself. I believe two things stop a man from knowing deeper self. Fear and lack of humility. Most people are very fearful. They've allowed fear to riddle their lives, and it makes them choose things that they secretly don't want. It makes them choose things out of stagnantness, not comfort. It's a comfort to the physical, the now, the power that Friedrich Nietzsche talks about, the desiring things now, rather than what is actually good and what is actually the most beneficial. So I'd encourage you, through what you're going through, one, embrace it. Two, actually ask yourself, what do you fear and why? Why do you fear it? There's really no point to fear it. It gets you nowhere other than stops you from being. Because then you're doing again, because you're fearing. Fearing is doing. So we have a choice every single day. This is why I believe in Jesus, because it has all the answers. Romans 12 says, renew your mind daily. Shoot, bro. It's a long road, especially with that. Hebrews 12 says to run the race with endurance. To run the race with endurance means that you're not stopping running. You're just running and running and running and running and running till the finish is there. And our physical body's finish is death. And so I believe we were made to embrace it. If you've never ran a marathon, go run a marathon right now. Your feet are going to hurt. Your legs are going to be tired. You could be the best athlete and you'll still cramp. You could, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, you will go through some sort of pain in it. But the feeling after as your body heals is one of the most beautiful things, one of the most, dare I say, tender things. Because your body is being restored. And when we embrace the sorrows, the things of our life, and allow God to tend to them, allow our spirit to be tended to, then we're one. We're right. We are in true consciousness. So, bro, I'm suffering in a lot of ways. And it has been very hard for quite some time now. But every day, God meets me. And He's diminished insecurity. He is diminishing it. That's why I went on this walk alone. Because I was sad that I wasn't asked to go to something. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But I embraced it. I asked myself why. And it's because I wasn't finding fulfillment in the Lord. In the one who is outside of my body. And so, embrace it to then understand yourself more and how to be more you. Because you is not all of the things that have happened to you. It is you healed from those things. That is truly you. That's all I got. I don't know if I just blabbered for the last 28 minutes, but suffering is inevitable. It is beautiful. And if you choose to accept it, if you choose to sit at its table, you'll be played cards that make you feel like you're losing, but you're winning in the end. It's your choice now. You can continue to lie to yourself like most of the world will do for the next 60 years. Or you can start to experience something that not many people do. It's not easy, but run the race with endurance. Embrace the suffering, because suffering is the thing that will teach you more about yourself and about humanity than anything else. You are loved. You're valued. I'm glad you're here. You're not alone. Let's figure this life out, huh? I love you guys. I don't know. I feel like there's more, but I just know that what you're going through is beautiful. I don't even know who's watching this. I just know that what you're going through is beautiful. A seed starts in utter darkness. these plants, every single one of them, started underground in darkness and is now sprouted towards a light. And so what suffering does is it shows you the darkness so that you sprout up to light. So embrace the fact that you're a little seed. Sprout up towards the light. You're loved.